Many thanks to Chirp, Jaren, DayZ Podcast, Taggy's Tag West, and that one random for making this video possible. Wound Infection is back in DayZ 1.13, and this time around it is really angry, like impossible to survive unless you know how to survive it type of angry. I'd go as far as saying that this is the deadliest sickness currently in DayZ, which will reap the souls of the many players that don't understand why their squad now sounds like an orgy. So in this video I'm going to go over what causes wound infection, the symptoms of a wound infection and why you should cure it immediately, and the different methods to cure it. Starting with the basics, wound infection is caused by how you make this bleed out can go away, not how it was caused, so the method you use to remove this bleed. With that said, rags, bandages and this white sewing kit can cause wound infection if they're not sterilized or disinfected, but you can also get wound infection from letting your bleed icon remove or heal itself, which all bleeds do after 5 minutes, so you can't let it heal itself. This means in 1.13 you have 5 minutes to use sterilized rags, bandages or the sewing kit to heal your bleed, or you will likely get wound infection and certainly die unless you treat it. I attempted to transfer wound infection from one player to another using a knife, using a saline kit, drink, food, transferring blood, and even eating the body of the infected player itself. Nothing worked, so you can't catch wound infection from another player, at least at the moment. So to summarize, rags, bandages and the white sewing kit that are not disinfected will cause wound infection, or at least has a chance to cause wound infection when you repair a bleed, along with letting a bleed heal itself. So don't let bleeds heal themselves, and don't use stuff that's not disinfected. These are the only causes at the moment for wound infection. Wound infection has 2 stages. The first stage will make this icon appear and your character will make noises, along with your screen blurring when these noises play. However, the hidden and worst symptom of stage 1 wound infection is that your stamina bar will regenerate at half the speed at this stage, and because stamina is so important for getting around in DayZ, this is something that you're going to want to cure as soon as possible. Stage 1 wound infection will last around 20 minutes, and if you don't cure it, you will start the deadly stage 2 wound infection. Stage 2 wound infection, otherwise known as "you done f***ed up", starts with pain sounds that are louder than stage 1, along with a more intense blur that happens more frequently. If that won't become annoying enough for you, the arm wipe that happens every 15 seconds probably will, implying that your character is hot from the fever that comes with late stage wound infection. Along with this, your stamina regenerates at half the speed like in stage 1 wound infection, and also you get the added bonus of chronic Parkinson's, which will make hitting targets at a distance much more difficult. If that wasn't enough, your water drains roughly 10 times faster than normal, and you lose 0.75 health every 13 seconds, which may not seem like a lot, but even if you're very healthy with maximum health and maximum health regeneration, you would die in 40 minutes if you don't fix this, losing around 10 health every 4 minutes. However, the most elegant aspect of stage 2 wound infection is how it lasts over 9 hours in real life time. And it didn't end. I was doing this test for 9 hours. I was stood here for so long testing that I started to discover Street Fighter moves in DayZ. So in 9 hours, wound infection stage 2 can kill your character 13 times over from maximum health. The only reason I didn't die is because I have admin powers and I can regen my health, which basically means stage 2 wound infection is guaranteed death in 40 minutes or less, unless you cure it. Brutal. Curing wound infection stage 1 or stage 2 is simple enough. Find yourself some tetracycline. Take these medicine pills and it will go away. It takes 10 to 20 minutes for wound infection to go away using this method, which is the only method that will save you from certain death in stage 2 wound infection, because these pills also remove the health damage that you take from stage 2 wound infection, but it will only last 5 minutes per pill, so you need to take at least 4 pills consecutively to cure wound infection completely. However, if you're still in stage 1 wound infection, which remember lasts 20 minutes, you can cure yourself in less than 1 minute if you use rubbing alcohol, disinfectant, or the newly added iodine, or iodine, or I don't know. If you use these 3 within 20 minutes of getting wound infection, it will disappear in 1 minute, but this method will not work on stage 2 wound infection. You can also use these 3 on rags, bandages, and the white sewing kit to ensure you never get wound infection by disinfecting the item that you use to stop your bleeding. Beware, however, that if a disinfected item loses just one quality level, it will no longer be disinfected, and as tested will give you wound infection if you use it to stop bleeding on yourself, so it's not just a visual bug. You can't make disinfected items lose their disinfected status in any other way. Making it damp, for example, or muddy in a pond makes no difference. A new way to get sick in DayZ will no doubt come with loads of myths to bust, so I'm going to bust the most common myths that I believe will emerge in this patch. First of all, if you get a cut, using disinfectant on your wound and letting it heal itself will not stop you from getting wound infection, so never let wounds heal themselves. This also means that you should only ever patch up your wounds with disinfectant rags, bandages, or the sewing kit. The quality level of rags, bandages, and the sewing kit makes no difference to the likeliness of you getting wound infection. How strong your immune system is makes no difference to how likely you are to get wound infection. You cannot catch wound infection from another player, at least not yet. The source of the bleed makes no difference when it comes to wound infection. This means that you can technically die from getting a cut from having ruined shoes. Pebbles are OP. Getting hit by players, infected, wolves or bears will not give you wound infection. Using saline or a blood bag that is not disinfected will not give you wound infection, even if it's used by someone that has wound infection. You cannot coat a blade with the blood of someone that has wound infection to give other players wound infection, even though that would be super duper awesome. Using these antibiotics that cure wound infection before using a rag that isn't disinfected won't stop you from getting wound infection, so you can still get it even when you have the tetracycline in your system. Rags that have been in dirty water or on the floor don't increase the chance of you getting wound infection. Multivitamins, morphine or painkillers do nothing at all when it comes to wound infection, absolutely nothing. Putting a sewing kit in a fire will not disinfect the needle or sterilize the needle in any way. In fact, because it takes damage inside the fire, it does the exact opposite, so don't do this. You don't take extra shock, blood or health damage when you have wound infection. Rubbing alcohol, disinfectant and iodine don't do anything in stage 2 wound infection. You can still apply it to your wounds, but it does nothing. I've tried this for an hour. Disinfected items appear to never lose their disinfected status, only when they take damage. And finally, clicking the like button on this video will give you a ghillie suit and SVD in DayZ right now. So to summarize, don't let wounds heal themselves and don't use rags, bandages and sewing kits to heal bleeds that are not disinfected. If you do get wound infection, you can cure it in 10 to 20 minutes using tetracycline, or if you are experiencing the first 20 minutes of wound infection, which means you're in stage 1 wound infection, you can cure it using these 3 on yourself in less than 1 minute. Now, wound infection is the most brutal sickness currently in DayZ. It kills relentlessly unless you cure it. So I want to get your opinion on this. Should wound infection work the way that it currently does in this video? Post your comments below and give the devs some valued feedback. Thank you for watching and have a good day.